Link 2012. Having a productive discussion is important. Many things get in the way of a productive dialogue, and today I would like to address the misuse of negative terms. A negative term is one that is used to link an individual to a group that possesses negative qualities. While most misuse of negative terms are political in nature, these arguments apply to other insults as well. Negative terms are useful for describing how people act and believe. If used incorrectly, though, they may reduce the value of the negative term, draw attention away from the actual discussion, or simply not contribute to the discussion. Let's consider for our first example that you discredit Jordan Peterson by calling him transphobic. Immediately, people's minds jump to thinking about transphobic organizations such as Westboro Baptist Church. The problem is, there's a big difference between Westboro and Peterson. Jordan Peterson believes we shouldn't be forced to use people's pronouns of choice, whereas Westboro Baptist Church believes something along the lines of trans people must go to hell, therefore we must hate them. On a scale of Peterson to Westboro, how transphobic is someone when you use the term? This is our problem. If you define transphobic as so loose as to include Jordan Peterson, the word becomes meaningless. Most people don't have a problem with what he believes, but most people do take issue with how Westboro behaves. If terms are used too loosely, they risk making innocent people appear as evil, or devaluing the term to the point where nobody cares if you call someone transphobic. Both these things are bad. We want our negative terms to have impact, but definitely not on the people whose views are merely nuanced. The solution to devaluing negative terms is to define them when using them, and cite the specific cases or beliefs referred to. It's fine if you have a loose definition of transphobic, but make sure to say so, and say you have qualms with people believing it's wrong to compel pronoun usage. Again, this applies to all negative terms. If you're not careful, they become meaningless, or more hurtful than they ought to be. Another issue with the example I provided is that the negative term detracts from the actual people that there is a problem with in order to attack someone comparably reasonable. Which leads me to my next point. In using negative terms excessively, you may shift the conversation into unproductive territory. For instance, let's consider you're having a conversation about education and someone says that college should be free. You tell them they're a snowflake because they're so special and entitled that they need everything handed to them. Now, sure, this person may be entitled, but what's going to happen now is an argument about how entitled their generation is. That gets us nowhere. The goal of this conversation was to discuss if college should be free. You could, again, shout snowflake, or instead, you could take a critical look at the education system, discussing its purpose, application, and benefit. And looking at these three things, you will likely come to a better conclusion, and maybe even one that doesn't involve education spending at all. This was all because the core problem at hand were focused on, rather than using negative terms. Negative terms detract from the core problem at hand. If labeling someone doesn't shift the conversation in that direction, don't do it. Make sure to keep the discussion on track and working towards an intelligent analysis of the topic rather than the other person. Now, there is a point to be made here that when it comes down to it, people often disagree due to conflicting value hierarchies and lifestyle. This is important to discuss, and is sometimes even the point of an intelligent discussion. But when policy, for instance, is being discussed, it's more important to get the roots and structure of the policy worked out before delving into the results at the surface. Looking at the surface could lead on a massive tangent, whereas looking at the roots directly gives us better insight into why people believe the way they do, as well as what ought to be done about any given issue. Finally, negative terms sometimes just don't help. Let's say you're talking to a typical National Socialist. You found out they hate black people, so you called them a racist. What did that accomplish? Nothing. As a matter of fact, you just told them you're unwilling to waver on your moral conclusions and are willing to judge others without knowing their moral arguments. As a result, this person could think one of two things. First, this will be a waste of time, let's move on with life. Or, I know, your point is. Negative labels only work when two people agree the negative label is valid. Since one side doesn't see being racist as an issue, why should they bother? Now, racism is still an interesting topic when it comes to National Socialists. You could ask them many useful questions. For instance, do you consider yourself racist? Why or why not? Why is racism justified? What intrinsic rights, if any, do you believe we have and why? In this case, instead of judging, you are inviting the other person to have a conversation. You might squirm at this, thinking, that's not what the hateful person deserves. The fact of the matter is, though, that listening is a two-way street. You can't convince someone they are wrong without understanding why they believe they are right. And they certainly won't listen to you if you come in judging without the willingness to listen. In conclusion, negative labels are often used in context that devalues the label, detracts from the purpose of the conversation, or simply don't have an effect. To save yourself from doing this, define your terms and context. Be wary that the negative term moves the conversation in a productive direction, and ensure that when using negative terms, you are postured to listen rather than judge. That's all for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to keep them civil though. If you found this video insightful, please leave a like. If not, please leave a dislike. Please share this video if you know anyone that misuses negative labels, and as always, don't forget to contribute and make the most of your day.